Yo. Kamea I hala, ua hala. E maka ala I ke kino, I kana au, a me kana ono.
Greetings and welcome to Jesse I Interviews. My name is Jesse I, and I produce this podcast on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation here in Naarm, also known to the world as Melbourne, Australia. As always, I mention this to pay respects to the First Nations people of these lands and also to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. As regular listeners will know, I started this podcast mainly as a way of making all of my older interviews available and as a way of contributing to the oral history of reggae music. This episode actually features a brand new interview which I only just recorded a bit over a week ago. It's a long time coming though, as I first tried to conduct this interview about 3 years back in 2021. It never happened at the time. I'm really glad I persevered though, as I think this is a really excellent interview. It was certainly super interesting for me personally and a really enjoyable one to conduct. It features the Hawaiian reggae singer, linguist, ethnobotanist and farmer Ka'ikena Scanlan. We did this one over Zoom, so the quality isn't quite as good as a proper studio interview, but it is well worth listening to. As always, I'm presenting it here completely unedited, and you'll hear that there was a break in the middle as I had to start a new Zoom meeting. Let's get right into it. Jesse I interviews Ka'ikena Scanlan from his home in Hilo, Hawaii, in November 2024.
So we got to let them know, let them know. So we got to let them know.
Yo,
Yo.
how's it going, man?
Good, man. How about you?
Good. You can hear me okay, obviously?
I can hear you good. We got coqui frogs and rain going on over here in Hilo, but
Okay, I can't hear any
hopefully
of that.
that's not too bad at the audio.
I can't hear it at all.
Yeah?
At all,
Okay.
actually. But the
Cool.
Wi-Fi must have dropped out for a second. There was just a little dropout. Hopefully, it won't be too bad. Yeah, this is funny, man. I haven't done anything
Yeah.
on Zoom in a couple of years. It's like memories of COVID or something.
Yeah, here we are back on the digital world.
Yeah, it's telling me. I'm getting a message now saying your bandwidth is low. So I don't know.
Oh, you're right. I'm okay.
How's your internet at your place?
My Wi-Fi was off on my phone, so I think I'm back on board now.
All right, let's see how we go. I can hear you
Yeah,
anyway.
is that
That's the
better
main
now?
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Cool. Yeah. So
Cool.
this interview, I do my radio program. I've been doing for more than 20 years. And ever since I discovered your music, I've been playing everything I hear pretty much. But I also have a
Appreciate it, man.
podcast. Pleasure, man. I also have the podcast called Jesse I Interviews, and it's mainly interviews from, the last couple decades, all my like historic interviews, but I'll put this one up there as well.
Cool.
Get something new up there. But before we start, I got to ask you how to pronounce your name because, like, I've never heard it pronounced, so I'm just like making up my own version.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm actually a linguist who got my bachelor's and was working on my master's in Hawaiian language. So it's a passion of mine to teach Olala Hawaiian Hawaiian language. But it's ka, and then that diacritical mark you see is a okina. So basically, it's a glottal stop, and so it makes the sound. So it's ka'ikena. So instead of it being kai, right, you have the
Yep.
stop in between. So it's ka'ikena.
Ka'ikena. And
Ka'ikena Scanlan is my last
yeah.
name. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah. I've been saying, I'm not sure what I've been saying, but not exactly that.
It's all good. It's all good. Somebody in
and
Kauai calls me Ka'ikena Scanlan. So Ka'ikena Scanlan. So
but the last part is Scanlan, right? It's not Saclan.
Scanlan. Yeah,
Okay,
Scanlan.
Yeah. Right.
They just run with
Same. And what about Hawaii? How do you say that correctly? Because like growing up in Australia, it's Hawaii, but that's when I
right.
hear people like you say it, it doesn't sound the same.
Depending on where you're coming from, there's like different I guess what's that, intonations or different dialects of the language, and so some give it a more sharper V sound on our W. So instead of it being Hawaii, it's Hawaii, right? With a V sound. And then there's also that okina in between the two I's, and so it's Hawaii. So you have two different pieces there, Hawaii. But it could also be Hawaii. Hawaii is what most people say. But Hawaii is probably how I would pronounce it.
All right. All right. Well, I mean, we've sort of started the interview unofficially, but I normally record an intro for the radio program. So let me just start it like it's going to air live. Normally on the podcast, just so you know, I normally like present the whole thing unedited. So if you're okay with that, I'll just put up the whole thing and let people hear the whole conversation. But for the radio, I edit it down.
Cool.
So with me right now on Zoom, all the way from Hawaii, I have Ka'ikena Scanlan. Thank you for joining me here on the program.
Yes, aloha, and thank you for having me.
And now, this is something different because mostly I've interviewed reggae artists from Jamaica and a few from Europe and here and there. This is the first time I'm speaking to somebody from Hawaii. So can you let me know about, like, you're at your house now, so tell me about where you live and what your surrounds are like.
So I'm blessed to live in the Panaewa rainforest in Hilo on the big island of Hawaii. It's a rainforest, and so it's raining right now. It typically rains. I'm lucky enough to be on a Department of Ag lease lot, and so it's state land, but there's a 5-acre orchard that's already really established on it, and my job is to just create a business out of it. Right next to us is the Panaewa stretch that goes from Puna, where you see a lot of the active volcanoes and whatnot, and then down to Ka'u in Kilauea, where I guess Hawaii is famed for. But yeah, this place here is well known for its greenery and for the legends of Hula and of Pele and whatnot, the goddess of the volcano. So yeah, that's where we're at right now, deep in Hilo.
Nice. Well, let me take it back to the very start. Where were you born, and did you grow up in this area?
I actually did not. I'm from the main island, where the capital is at in Oahu, in Honolulu. But I grew up on the east side of that island, in a little town called Kailua, which has now kind of blown up to be a major stop for tourism. But yeah, then moved over here to the Big Island further east when I was just a young high school graduate looking for a college career, and decided to jump into Hawaiian language and Olala Hawaii. And yeah, kind of just found roots here and then decided to stay. So
what was it like growing up as a kid in Hawaii in that time?
Well, I had a interesting childhood. My father passed away 3 days before I was born, and so I was raised by my mom, and she remarried when I was 2. But it was kind of city life, it's kind of very different than the life that I live now. But it's almost as if we were trying to obtain an American status and like an American feel and look, rather than keeping the feel of old Hawaii. And so as a kid, I yearned for that identity, because it wasn't really taught in my household. And so I went and dove into farming. I dove into Hawaiian language. I dove into cultural studies and whatnot. And from there, that's kind of where the majority of my content comes from, is at least that type of place, where it's the value of the culture and the Hawaiian language and the identity of our people is the forefront of what I try to create.
I wanted to ask how you became a farmer. So that there's a cultural connection there as part of that. It's not just about making a living from the land. It's actually like reaching back to roots of the land.
Yeah, for sure. How do I say it? Well, my first job was at Ko'olau Farmers, and it's basically just a plant nursery. Meanwhile, I needed to do community service hours in order to graduate high school and get my diploma. And it just so happened that across the street from my first job as a young 17-year-old, there was a heiau. So a heiau is a stone temple, pretty much, that was built in the ancient days. And one stands right in the middle of this, tiny little town, but now has become a hard, hustling, bustling town. But it's fed by a spring, like it's built on top of a spring. So most of our taro patches or our what do you call that? Our paddies, it's like more wetland paddies, would be filled by rivers. But this one's real special because it's fed by a spring that starts right underneath this temple. And so I kind of got locked in plenty of different ways and kind of just looking at contrasts of life and how different players play their cards different ways and just how this thing has continued to stand for, generations and millennia. So I locked in there. I also was a little bit kolohe, or a little bit of a rascal growing up. And so I ended up breaking my arm skateboarding. And so with that, I had to kind of shift where I was going to go with my college career. And yeah, coupled with Hawaiian language, it just reinstilled the values of farming and why our lands and our soils and our plants and the foods that we eat here are naturally going to be the most valuable thing that we have as Hawaiians. Looking at it today and the politics of food and how we're basically 95% dependent on imported foods, we really don't have a reason to be that dependent on these foods. Since in history, Hawaiian history, you can see that there are 1 million people on this island alone, and they were thriving with the agricultural system, and it was regenerative, and all those catchy words that we like to use nowadays. It just was, it was the only way to live on this island. You had to grow your own food. You had to be able to feed your people, and so there's always a threat, of what happens if we run out of food. There's also the question mark of what's actually in our foods, and what are we eating, and how long will it take before we, understand that value. So I try to put farming and Hawaiian language and culture and all of that into the art, and also do the opposite and vice versa, and throw my art back into places that are valuing farming and culture and art and all of that too. So
Yeah, right. So what are you actually farming?
Currently I'm working in an agroforest, and so it's basically like a reproduction of a forest, rescaling and modeling of a forest based on agricultural production. So the grid, the bare roots of it is going to be breadfruit, or what we call ulu. And so it's a tree that lives about 80 years to 150 years, depending. And fruits typically somewhere around 300 pounds per year per tree. And so that's all these dense, starchy fruits that we can use as substitutes for potatoes and yams and rice, or whatever those really important starches are that are going to fill our bellies. And in between that, we have green bananas. We have beds of kalo that span the whole carpet of the agroforest. And so basically everywhere you walk, you're walking in an edible tier of some sort. And some of them are multi-tiered on top of each other.
That's mad.
So yeah, breadfruit, bananas, taro. We have mamaki tea, which is an endemic nettle. We have lemongrass. We have like 5 different types of basils, hot peppers, comfrey, cassava, coffee. The list goes on, but it's basically as much as possible, every single square inch, vertically and horizontally, is being used.
I'm curious, does ackee grow in Hawaii?
Ackee, what is ackee?
Oh man, it's I asked because it's one of my favorite foods, and I've only ever had it in Jamaica. Because the national dish of Jamaica is ackee and saltfish, and I never like the saltfish, but ackee is like, it's hard to describe. It grows in these little pods.
Seen it,
has
yeah, and you got to roast it too.
black seed. No, you don't roast it.
Oh,
It's got a black seed in the middle. you have to wait until it opens naturally because it's poisonous. If you force it open at that point, it's poisonous. But once it opens naturally, then you can eat it. It's got like a yellowy white flesh around the stone.
Okay.
Sorry, one sec. Oh, my wife is bringing me a. This is like a. I don't know if you can see that on the camera.
I
That's
can.
what
I
it
can.
looks like.
Wow.
That's like a ceramic version. So this like white yellowy stuff. It's like it's like a vegetarian answer to scrambled eggs, kind of. It's like a bit nutty like avocado, but it's unique.
Huh.
There's nothing else I've ever had like it. Um,
Wow.
but I'm just curious, like, because it should grow in your climate, It'd be an
It
interesting
probably
thing to.
could. And it's funny with this property. I only have been here for less than a year. And I keep finding random fruits that I've never seen in my life before. And somebody's
Mm.
like, yo, you're sitting on a gold mine. Like, you have these? Like, I have a star apples, and then I have those
Oh yeah,
rolinias. And like this past summer, durians were falling from the sky. Uh,
durian, far out.
Durians. And they're
Yeah,
thinking that because all four cells are full with meat, that they're like a
yeah.
good variety and I need to graft them and like
They're
continue
expensive too.
propagating.
My
That's what
wife
I
is
hear.
Malaysian, so yeah, durian is big in Malaysia,
So I
but
was
it's
told
not
that, yeah,
cheap. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I've actually we're getting off topic, but like I've always had this little dream in the back of my head about moving to northern Australia where it's like tropical climate and farming ackee because I reckon it's the next like vegan superfood, I reckon you'd be able to market it and like it's so good. It's really high in protein too,
I
so
gotta try it.
yeah. Let me ask you about the song Pro Farmer because that's one of my
Mm.
favorite songs from you.
Tell me, could you look away from a dirty man? Turn the man away, cause the way he wears a dirty hand. But the dirt on his hand is from the land that they took away. They took away, he doesn't understand. Blood quantum, they want him to stay up in the school. To love, flaunting paperwork, making up who is who. Uh-oh, where's the oh-oh, they're taking away the tools. Number quarter cocoa is less than a quarter tank of fuel. But still he keeps on performing, chanting and dancing up in the garden with oh-oh, seeds planting words from his song, yeah. But this is the life of a performer.
On one level, it sounds quite autobiographical. I'm sure it is, but looking at the lyrics, it's more than just a song about dancing and chanting while planting in the garden. It also speaks to stolen land and people removed from their traditional way of life. Is that a correct interpretation?
Nailed it, bro. Nailed it. Yeah, exactly. It kind of is walking through my journey of trying to be a farmer and figuring out what's the best move. And the criticism that I got on the way, it's like, dirty hands and, you don't fit the part of a quote unquote professional, right? And you can't really make the argument that you're going to make a whole bunch of money because that's really hard to do out here with land prices and just the life costs out here. So that's why nobody farms is because it's so much cheaper to just buy things that are shipped in. Because when you have to, then it talks about, me getting through school and, saying that, oh, you need to stay in school and get more degrees and, keep working at that whole ladder while meanwhile, there's farming opportunities and, I'm getting into debt, trying to buy more food, right? Instead of just farming and taking care of what's super necessary. But yeah, you nailed it. That's pretty much exactly what it is. All of that is in the story.
Love it. Let me take you back to the music itself. Like, when did you first become interested in music? What are your early memories of music?
I can always remember, and I always tell this story of my oldest brother, Malosi Scanlan. He pretty much instilled music in me from a very young age. So I'm the youngest of seven. He's the oldest of seven. And so he's 17 years older than me. And yeah, basically from day one, he wanted to make sure that I had music as an influence, knowing that that was like a passion of our father's. So he would give me like a new instrument every birthday or every big holiday or whatever. It'd be like a new little ukulele that they helped me buy or like a bass guitar, and then it was a electric guitar, and then it was my dad's chord guitar, then it was a drum set, and then it was like recording material, and then it was like studio material, and then it was like performance material. Like it just kept coming through the years, and now that I'm on my own career, it's just taken off, and I still play the guitar that he's given me, one of his guitars. So
Cool. What about reggae? Like, is that just part of Hawaiian life?
uh I would say it is now for sure. It's definitely like a stereotype, or like a something that you would typically see here in Hawaii, is that island music, right? So it's kind of throughout all of the Caribbean, same thing. I think it's wasn't just a Jamaican music after a little while, right? It was a real island, very general. But Hawaiians have definitely put their own spin on it, and for a little while, we have coined the term Hawaiian music, where it's like Jamaican Hawaiian music. But I like to now say that we've stepped into a new realm where we can say we have Hawaiian reggae music. Thinking about the idea of a Hawaiian person telling a Hawaiian story through a Hawaiian language, and all of that incorporated into a 2 and 4 skank type of reggae beat with a 1 drop. It's definitely reggae, but it's also definitely Hawaiian, right? And so I think Hawaiian reggae has been able to establish its own little nook, but always, respects to the creators, and everybody that made the movement happen through Jamaica and all of America too. So
Yeah, it's interesting seeing how reggae has developed in different areas. Like, well, I'm really passionate about the reggae that comes out of the Virgin Islands, that's St. Croix, St. Thomas. The band Midnight I don't know if you're familiar with Midnight, but
Midnight. Oh,
like
yeah.
for me, that's about the pinnacle of reggae music. But they've got a unique scene there, and then closer to home, I mean, the reggae scene and the local reggae scene in Australia is not that great, but there's a really strong scene in New Zealand, and that connects a lot more to the island music scene generally, I think.
Mhm.
And the sound is probably more similar to Hawaii, and
I
I
don't know.
know
I
that they're
love
familiar
Maori
with your
music.
music too. Yeah.
I love Maori music and all of the different, genres that they have in Australia too, and like the different ethnicities and people that run through. But yeah, Maoris, I don't know. They got a pizzazz about them, It's just a little bit different than Hawaiians. And not to say anything bad about the Hawaiian music, but the Maoris, they seem like they've got their stuff dialed in on the musical realm.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do like Catch a Fire perform over there much?
Oh yeah, and we've seen them and jumped on shows with them too. And so
Yep.
yeah, we've loved being able to talk stories with them. I have yet to actually like visit New Zealand, and I think in order to do that, I might have to jump in and stop off in Australia.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I'll let you know if I'm in for a day. But I really want to catch up with all the boys down there from Catcha, and see if we can get in a show or two, because I hear that there's some streams, flying in from New Zealand. So
Yeah. Oh, let me I'll talk to you more about that later, but because I'm friends with the manager of Catch a Fire, and she knows who you are because I played one of your songs when I was supporting DJing support for Catch a Fire one time, and she goes, "Oh," and she commented. So I've got to put the hard word on her to tour you guys over here and
yeah, let's
work something out.
go. The boys got the
Um,
passports. We ready to fly.
yeah, Matt. All right, so looking back at you mentioned the language side of things. So I had read that you were a Hawaiian language professor and an ethnobotanist at the University of Hawaii Hilo. So tell me about that side of things and language and everything is distinct from the farming and the music. Like that's a whole serious thing, serious study.
Yeah, it started when I was in college as a student. And one of my teachers said, "Hey, one of these days you should teach this class. It's Hawaiian ethnobotany." So that's the study of plants and their use in the culture, specifically pertaining to Hawaiian culture. And so every week I would treat it like a lab lecture type of deal, where you'd come in, would look at a PowerPoint, do a lecture, and then the next day that you come into class, 2 days a week, we'd be working with a different plant. And so I would use we'd start off making rope out of hoe bush. And so it's basically like a hibiscus relative where the bark is used to make a rope. You got to let it wash out for like 2 months. So every week we're washing the water out. We're using tea leaf to make rope. We're using that rope to make a whistle with a kamani nut. We're grating coconut to make haupia. We're drinking ava. We're pounding kalo. We're juicing sugarcane. Like I try to make sure that we get as much hands-on activity. And then all of a sudden they asked me to teach Hawaiian language too and start to do my master's program. Like as I graduated the next semester, it was really wild. I had it thrown on me literally the day that the semester started. And then they were like, go talk to the dean tomorrow. That's day one. And then the day after that, you should have your syllabus in order. It's Tuesday, and that's when class starts and you're going to teach. It's like, yo, for real? They're like, yep. Hope you got your schedule for the semester ready. You're crazy. But it worked out, and then it snowballed into a few more semesters. And then, music kind of just started taking off. And it's kind of lucky. It was right before COVID started. It was the end of 2019. I kind of pulled my card and said, I can't do this very much longer. Paying out of pocket. And I need to really focus on this thing on the side. I just had my first child. Now I have 2 kids, 4 and 6.
Okay.
Language is really important on that end.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you have time for all this stuff? Like, for music really on top of,
I really don't know, and I really don't think I have the time. But something happens, and we just make it happen. Something needs to happen, we'll do it.
So, well, on the music, I wanted to ask. You mentioned about the instruments and everything from your brother and everything, but what about singing? How did you learn to sing in the way that you do?
I don't know. Well, okay, I was in the Glee Club in high school. It's the Concert Glee Club, the Kamehameha School's Concert Glee Club. It's pretty renowned group, and it's a historical group that has used the Kamehameha School's Hawaiian students to sing these Hawaiian choral hymnals. And so it's been. Yeah, I've been a big fan of it, seeing my brother go through it and my sister go through it. Then when I jumped into the high school, I was led into this Glee Club. And so, I kind of developed singing habits there and singing, techniques. And I guess, our family was always kind of a musical family. My cousin was heavy into falsetto competitions, Hawaiian falsetto music. And so I used to play bass for him and listen to him sing and try to sing harmonies. But how I developed my own style, I don't really know. I kind of it just happened, I guess. Wow. Sometimes I don't even think I can sing. Sometimes I just think I'm like yelling, but.
Trust me, man. I've listened to a lot of music in my time. You can sing. Trust
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah. That's for me, like the first song I heard from you was Utu Bang Bang. And I loved it, but I think it was probably a couple songs after that where I was like, damn, like you can really sing, like you got a real range. Not saying you didn't have a range in Utu Bang Bang at all. Like that's fantastic. I love it. But like once I heard more of your music and I'm like, that's a powerful voice.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. On the Utu Bang Bang though, like, I still don't really know what it means. Can you explain that song for us?
Depending on the crowd, sometimes I play events for children.
Yep.
And so I'll explain it as doing your homework and showing up on time. It's a way of life. That's why the teacher comes around, because she knows that you did your homework and you're always on time. So
she come around for the Utu Bang Bang, 'cause I put it down with my Utu Bang Bang. These other guys can't do the same thing, so she keeps on coming on to the Utu Bang Bang. She come around for the Utu Bang Bang, 'cause I put it down with my Utu Bang Bang.
But if you listen to Pirates of Liloa, and a shout out to the homie Irie JK, if he ever wants to do a collab or if he ever wants to go on tour and do these songs live. Legendary album, Pirates of Liloa, Liloa. It's like a parody album, but it ended up being an extremely classic album through all of Hawaii.
Hmm.
And so there's a line in the song. I think the song is Licky Licky. And then he talks about being in a massage parlor and how his body's so sore from all the utu bang, Irie JK. And so that is like, I mean, I believe that it was already an iconic phrase in Hawaii. And then he picked it up, used it in his song, and then I picked it up from his song and used it in mine. So I didn't actually create this term, but it's basically intercourse is what most would say. Yeah.
Yep. I kind of figured that. In fact, I heard another song recently. Is you and I can't remember the other singer, but he says at the start, "I ain't looking for the utu bang bang. I'm looking for a shaka shorty, whatever."
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, that put it in a bit of context. That one.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a dope collab. That was good fun. That's the first. Oh, I guess that was the second collab I did. But yeah, it's been fun doing this whole collab game and feature artists, and kind of look forward to doing a little bit more of that.
Nice. Hey man, I just got a pop up saying it's running out of time. I might have to stop just to be safe. I might stop this and then start another one right up, just so it doesn't just cut out mid sentence. So give me. I'll just stop this and then I'll start a new one. Invite you back. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me go get some water.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Sorry about that, man.
No, all good.
I didn't know that Zoom actually made you wait now to start a new meeting. They're trying to get you to pay for the premium.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, thanks for your patience, man. Yeah, hell yeah.
Where does it go?
I love one. Oh, it's blurring out. It's blurring out. That's a performer one.
It says performance. So I guess I got to pay for the endorsement. Gotta pay for the sponsorship.
All right, man. I'm conscious of the fact you're a busy man with a family and everything, and you just got back.
No, I'm free tonight. You got all the time in the world.
Ah, cool. All right, because my next question, this is probably a subject you could talk a lot about, but I want to talk about colonization because I don't know a lot of the history of Hawaii myself, but I believe there are some similarities to Australia in terms of colonization and in terms of Captain Cook coming there, or as we call him here, Captain Crook is what we call him around these parts.
Agreed.
Yeah, one of your songs, "I'm Not American," you talk about this pretty clearly. Can you explain where you're coming from with this song?
So the major difference in Hawaiian history is, I mean, yeah, we had Captain Cook, but at the time we were just setting up the monarchy, and there was a clearly fully instated monarchy that was running the governance of Hawaii. And so we had received over 187 treaties. I believe there was 187 emissaries where you could travel through the world and be represented as by the Kingdom of Hawaii, or the Hawaiian Kingdom, I guess you would say. During Kamehameha III's reign, which I believe this was, I want to say the 1830s. He was 1831. He had been overthrown wrongfully by the British government, and they tried to steal the kingdom, and he brings it back. His name is Admiral Paulette, and he comes through and says, "Yeah, I'm taking the kingdom and I'm bringing it back to Britain, and look at us, the empire has grown." And Britain says, "Well, you can't do that because we already have a treaty with them. Like, you can't technically do that." So then they return the treaty, or they return the land and the sovereignty back to us, and that's where we get the Union Jack in our flag, and that's also where we get the state motto that the Americans use, "Ua mau ke ea o Ka'ikena i ka pono." And so there's actually a saying from our king on the podium where he says that our sovereignty was returned in righteousness, but the state currently says that um, it's the life of the land that's perpetuated, not the sovereignty of the land. And so it's very different, translation. And so what's also interesting is that we had the first treaty and the first recognition of our sovereign nation as the kingdom was between our kingdom and America. And so from there we had Britain, France, and we had the Anglo-Saxon treaty, whatever. That was, pretty much solidified us. We were in the first League of Nations. We had established treaties throughout the world in many, many nations. And so the overthrow of our queen was a chess move. And so they tried to annex our kingdom, our lands. But I believe the annex, there's you need to have a 2/3 vote in the House, and they were going through a war, I believe, at the time. And so, but basically the House shut it down because they said, no, we're not going to annex Hawaii. Like, it's its own kingdom, it's its own sovereign nation. And then the businessmen that were living here pushed forward and decided they wanted to get a joint resolution, which then is a treaty between two nations and saying, if you stop killing our people, then we will give you these lands, or whatever it's going to be. However, that is illegal in political science, I guess, political history, to have a joint resolution between the American provisional government and the American government. And so there's only American talking to America, right? And so we need the Hawaiian kingdom's voice there. She decides that she's not going to take arms, even though she's being held captive and imprisoned inside of her own castle, inside of her own palace. She's locked in a room, and they take over the government. And before you know it, we're a territory of Hawaii. And then we become a state in 1959, I believe. All under false documentation. And so the biggest part and the trippiest part, which I tell everybody, is the reason why Hawaiian history is so much different and so important is because all of our pieces are still in play. Like, it wasn't that long ago. It was like 100-something years ago, and all of those documents are still in play. Like, they're still what ties us to this government. And so what ties us to the government now also ties us to real estate capitalism, where it becomes the new LA. And so it's more so a lucrative type of business deal going on with no foundation of proper documentation. Right. And so it's less that we're just colonized, but now it's also more so that we're like, now we're I feel like there's a big lapse in maybe mental or intelligence. And so we believe that we're not colonized, that we actually are Americans, and this is the way. Right. And so, but there is still, a big crowd out there that understands the facts of history, and that we, still have a voice to fight for, because we still technically still exist. And even in the state laws and the state documents, they're wording things from our kingdom constitution, and they have to uphold certain sides of the kingdom. So on paper, we still exist as an independent sovereign nation, but in people's psyche and their view of reality, it's like that hasn't existed for over 100 years. But like this is one that I don't know, maybe it's conspiracy theories, but the guy who helped overthrow the kingdom and to shut down the The Queen also became the first governor, who also was there, and became like a part of Kamehameha schools. And I think he was a principal. His Dole, stands for B Dole. And so that's where you get Dole Cannery and Dole pineapples. And you
Right,
get
right.
Hawaiian pizzas, right?
Yeah,
With
right.
this man's image. And so that's also why, when people say, why do Hawaiians hate the idea of Hawaiian pineapple, is that or Hawaiian pizzas, is mostly because the pineapple does not belong in Hawaii. Like it was not a
I never
it's this guy Dole.
I never knew why Hawaiian pizzas had pineapple. I never knew this. This has only come together now.
Like if it's puakalua, the kalua pork, or like, something like that with like taro leaf on it, that makes sense. But this
Yeah.
pineapple is basically stamping us with the oppressor and the colonizer.
Yeah, right.
And so that's like, this is your pizza. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. I never thought about it.
But so he still holds the Department of Education in his cannery building. Like,
Yeah,
that's
right.
their home. And so that's what I'm saying. All these pieces are still in play. Like the people who have control of the archives are the same people that took it over 150 years ago, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, America is such a cultural force too. Like there's colonization in play, on a cultural sense too, regardless of, all around the world. The American culture is taking over so many places. I've seen it in my travels to Jamaica. I started going to Jamaica in 2002. And the change I've seen in the decades since then is vast, like the American influence on the country overall. So obviously, like, where you are, that would be even more so because you have so much, like people coming from mainland USA
Mhm.
and so forth. How is it like keeping the real, old school culture alive? Like obviously that's where language is important. I don't need to tell you that. Like that's
Mhm.
that
Well, I would say the most difficult part is kind of like in Performer, where it's talking about like, you know, basically, yeah, I was told don't go to school for Hawaiian language because it's not going to get you anywhere. You're just going to speak the language and end up being a teacher, and you're going to end up in a cycle. And, like, you're not going to make any money. The
Yep.
best thing you're going to have is that you're going to work at the hotels and you're going to have this niche opportunity to speak Hawaiian there or whatever. And so,
Right.
it's like it's a fading idea in some ways, and I think that's why there is value in what I do and why people appreciate the choices I've made in the art. Is because it does speak to the truth that we still exist and that there is still a drive to make things right. And so there's definitely a shift, right? It's gonna have to go through this whole digital world and social media, and it's got to also still be rooted in the hands-on work in the lands and on the dirt. And so the it becomes tough too. Now I got two kids, right? And trying to explain to them the importance of our language and why it's important that we fight for it because it was banned at one point, and like, but then everybody else, all their family, because I wasn't raised in Hawaiian, I was raised speaking English.
Yeah.
So when they visit my parents and my siblings, and their whole family is all going to be speaking English to them.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like a battle to even try to keep them tuned in. And like they speak proper English, they're great. I mean, maybe not the best, but 4 and 6, and I've never taught them English, but they speak perfectly fine with everybody they run into. So
Yeah, right. So around the house, like when you're talking to your kids, what are you
Hawaiian
speaking?
and only Hawaiian, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And so
That's
we
cool.
have certain Maori, Te Reo Maori programs that we watch on YouTube, like the Darwin and Newts.
Yeah, right.
There's also a few Hawaiian language programs that we have. Also, I did do like a voiceover part in the Hawaiian language Moana. So
Oh man, that's
we'll
cool.
let them, watch those kind of things. And then if not, they get it too. Like they don't really want to listen to English things, so they'll ask me to put on just some other random language, or they'll just turn off the volume themselves. They'll just watch something in silence, which is
Okay.
kind of cool. But yeah, they get it. They understand. So
Right. Well, this is a little off topic and definitely not for the radio show, but I'm curious with what's been happening in Palestine over the last years, the year or more. I mean, it's been going for a long, long time, but um, as somebody coming from where you're coming from with that experience of colonization, how much have you been paying attention to Palestine and what's happening there?
Um, Pay a little bit of attention. Try not to get too caught up in it. I know it is a big important issue in our world today, and it has been for generations, right? And the level that it's been taken to in this day and age is for sure scary. And on either side, it's hard for me to speak up. But what really I do want to say is that, as America's voice, that they get to be so vocal about all these things in Ukraine and in Palestine, that it's a mirror image of what was done to our people, right? And we made political moves as our people to make sure that we didn't fight and we kept our documentation straight. And so if they really want to speak up about colonization and genocide of a people, we should really bring that conversation back home here. And I hope that in all places that people's stories are told and their voices are heard, and that they get to live a happy life. Same that I wish for my people. I wish that on any people. And so, sucks that it happens so often, and that it kind of tends to be repeating characters that keep getting involved, right? So, so we kind of just fight for our fight and just say, hey, grow our starches and our foods, and let's focus on that, right? And it's not fun for anybody. It's not something that we should rejoice about in any second, but we should be also focused on the little victories we have here in our little battle. So
true. One of the first songs I heard by you is Hey Kanaka. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
Correct me if I say any of these things wrong. I can't understand the lyrics, of course. I can't understand the lyrics because most of it is in Hawaiian language, but from the lyrics that are in English, it appears like you're rejecting the religion of the colonizers, and also in there you state that you're not Rasta either, for that matter. So can you expand on this for me?
Sure, yeah. So this song I started writing when I was in high school, and same idea. It was like I was kind of doing a soul search and trying to identify myself through my names. And so Elijah is the name given to me by my mom. She was raising us as Catholics. And Ka'ikena is my Hawaiian name. So what did I say? Probably my name Elijah. Elijah. I praise Jah is what it ends up translating to. And so, but also as a reggae musician, a lot of people that just say, "Oh, you're one of those, reggae, you Rastafarian, you like that dreadlock music." Well, okay, maybe I do like reggae music, but it doesn't make me a Rasta. And no offense to any Rastas, right? That's what I say in the lyrics. No offense to you. It's just that I'm a Hawaiian, and so in the history of the tale, right? And so it's not even that. Yeah, the Rastas have anything that they've done negatively to influence us, but just like the way that these stories are treated, right? And the King James Bible or whatever is the colonizer missionary of that time that wants to come and spread that religion, just to wrongfully tell it, right? And to persuade people in evil ways. And so just kind of looking back at that history and the way it affected our peoples, with genocide and mass deaths and whatnot. And a war of religion, and then kind of just redefining that who we are as a Hawaiian people, and like that, it's real easy, and we have a lot of people in Hawaii who have like a fake patois accent when they sing, and like even sometimes when they speak, and and that's everybody's choice. Some of them I'm big fans of, some of them not as much, and it's just not my style, right? And to say that we have our own Pidgin, our own Creole that we speak. We have our own way of life. I'm definitely not on an Aito diet where, we do salt our pigs and cook them in emus, and we have our own customs here. And so this is what my culture teaches me to be. And so, again, no offense to anybody else, but this is who I am.
According to my name, which ever since the day you landed on my island. Many of them are passed away, and many of them gone. All of them giving them praises to your holy begotten Son. My people have to chant and sing, this is my song. I said, Aoleo, here I stand, no ho I he kanaka wale novo, he kanaka no Hawaii.
And then so I can explain, Aoleo he Rasta no hoi means I'm not a Rasta. Also, he kanaka wale novo, he kanaka no Hawaii. I'm a Hawaiian, and I'm a Hawaiian from Hawaii, here in Hawaii. And so Vahia kaino Ka'ikena ua velo mai ka'ike mai na kupuna. So according to the name, which is Ka'ikena, Ike means to see. So in Hawaiian language, to see and to know is the same word. So it's like first-hand experience, pretty much. That the knowledge has been passed down from the ancestors. Huli kalima ilala kalima. They have a saying that says, if you turn your hands up, you'll be hungry. If you turn your hands down, you'll always be full. Which means, if you're always asking, then you're always going to be asking and hungry. You put your hands down into the dirt and you work, then you'll always be full. You'll figure it out. And so, what does it say? Hu'e kaimu kapi kapua'a pela no koka Hawaii no hona is basically saying, ho'opia I ka lua o ka inaina ka aina Hawaii ka ai me ka i'a. Fill your belly, which is also termed as like the pit of anguish, because that's where hunger comes from, right? And so that's where people die. And fill it with food, and have it be Hawaiian foods where you salt your pigs and you eat your fish too. And that's how Hawaiians live. And then the bridge says, never gave him a praise love to John. One that I was raised that I came from was raised on Haloa. So there's a story of Haloa being birthed by sky god and the stars. And Haloa Nakalau Kapalili is the name of the first stillborn child, which was planted, buried, and up from there was the first kalo plant. So that's how we get kalo in Hawaii, or taro. And then the next child was Haloa, and that's where Hawaiians come from. It's just one of the stories of our origin. And so I was raised on Haloa. What did I say after that? So from the point where the sun rises all the way to the point where the sun sets, I will forever be a Hawaiian. So.
I love it, man. Like,
Thank
for
you.
me, Rasta reggae is my first love in reggae music, but I also love
same.
that you don't feel like you gotta, do any stereotypes or like fulfill any cliches,
And I'm still a huge fan of the whole Marley lineage and everything that they've created, and all of the Rasta movements, and listening to was that the Abyssinians. And so and what do you say, midnight, that's what in Hawaii we call that roots, like anything that's more slow tempo and more like steady, drum and bass heavy. There it is. Yes. You're winning.
That was my first love in reggae music as well. But speaking of cliches, Smoke All Day, I feel like you knew what you were doing with this one. This is like playing into the expectation when somebody sees a reggae song called Smoke All Day, but you're not it's not the song that they're expecting necessarily when they listen to that one.
Yeah, we're better than that. We do more than that, but that was the idea for sure.
Smoke meat, not drugs. What's up, Balala? You know I called ya. I'm looking for Kiave, but I know you get guava. We can throw on some chickens. I know you like the sausage hotter. We can run the ribs and brisket, whatever you wanna. No murder style. We strictly slaughter Hawaiian South upon the counter for make that mean we pick cola. Got that shoyu, sugar, ginger, garlic, chili, pepper, water. Cause the boys just came back with one big freaking poo-ah,
That one came about. I actually moved into a house, kind of. Maybe it was like almost 10 years ago now. But built a small little smoke box with some, recycled materials from an old roof we had just put up. So then I smoked my first meat, and I said, "How come we don't make a song about this? This needs to be celebrated. Like this is a thing."
Yeah.
And
Well, I was actually vegetarian for like 20 years.
no,
I eat meat now. But and a ganja smoker even longer than that. But I love that tune, even when I didn't really, like I can't remember where I was
I
in my.
apologize if I was the reason you broke your diet, man.
Nah, no, I mean, yeah, we're getting off track, but that was more like health reasons for me. Like, I
Mm,
mean, it was really good for me being vegetarian when I was vegetarian because that was for health reasons also. But then I got to a point where I
that's
need
good.
to eat less processed food and eat
Yeah, and
more
I
just
mean,
like
even
clean.
that's yeah,
Yeah,
that's the idea of the song too, is like to remind ourselves of all of these traditions we have and all of these resources we have sitting right around us. Like all of our pig hunters are really, really going to be valuable in the long run. All of our fishermen and whatnot, and like having this tradition of smoking meat and creating preserved meats is way more important than losing yourself to this whole ice epidemic that we've been struggling with in Hawaii. So
so you got
and
that
like
there too.
just being able to really, yeah, really address it one time, because it just kept going, and nobody really wants to say anything. You're not gonna hear, except for there's some like goody two shoe songs like "We need to clean up the streets," and like "Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo," but nothing that you're gonna really vibe to and that you're really gonna like march
Yeah,
with your brothers to. And so there's purpose to that too. There's comedy in the name, and like to
yeah,
try and sway the idea, but also to, since we got this platform, let's really strike a chord with it. So it was Hey
yeah.
Kanaka and then Smoke All Day. That was the
Right,
second
right.
release.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because in the intro you say smoke meat, not drugs, and I
Hmm.
didn't even think about ice. I was just thinking, oh, are you actually like, are you anti-cannabis? But I never really thought about ice. So like that's because that's a huge problem here in Australia where I live. Like we've got an ice epidemic as well. Um, but what about ganja? Like, what's your stance on ganja?
Um, I support all plant medicines as a
Okay,
agriculturalist.
cool.
Any natural medicines that come from the land, right? That's all day, every day.
Yep.
I think you got to respect the process of which it's meant to be, ingested or indulged. Um, like there are some plant medicines, right, that people kind of just, you know, it's just more recreational, which, cannabis too has become very recreational. But
Mm.
if you listen in the song, I say at the end, we smoke EO, not Batu. So Batu is actually, I think it's Filipino word, which means rocks or crystals and so that's what a lot of people call meth out here is Batu,
Okay.
right? And so
Right, right.
but yeah, nah, nothing against cannabis users. Um, I've chosen to not be like public in my music, at least about my cannabis use. But I think eventually, like once I'm a little bit older, I think I just have a big child audience, a youth audience. And so
Okay. Yep.
kind of just same thing. I got to be a little more cautious with every word and
Yeah.
every step I
Mindful.
take. And so,
Yeah.
yeah. But eventually, I might be like 40 years old and be like, fuck it already.
How old are you now?
32.
Okay. All right.
Young, young.
Um, yeah, yeah, true. Um, okay, so and Spoon Meat Entertainment, a lot of your songs have come out on that. What's the deal with Spoon Meat? Is that like
So
is that like spam? Is that like a because I know a lot of the islands, the Polynesian islands
uh,
around here, like they're big on their spam and their canned meat. Is it that sort of thing, or is it like
I love the question. I also love that. No, it's not that. It's actually like a young coconut meat. So when you have
okay?
those young green coconuts, that you split it in half and you can just use a spoon to simply scrape out that jelly on the inside.
Yeah, yeah, yep, I
That's
know.
the spoon meat coconut. And so
Okay,
there's a song which it's kind of in the reverse, the mentality, but there's a song it's like more traditional Hawaiian song talking about the new how or the spoon meat coconut. And it's more so about this young boy who wants to go out and he wants to get active, and who's gonna save him, or who's gonna protect him from all of these older aunties who just wanna like slurp up the spoon meat. And so but we flip it and we talk about the young coconut girl giving our respects to Brother Nolan and whatnot. Legends, hi, hello, hi, fashion world. Think it's in Pineapple Express. There's a coconut girl song.
Right.
But we're about to release this song, Spoon Meat, and it was written in the same freestyle session and in the same dorm room as Utu Bang Bang.
Okay.
And so the two songs are iconic in my head. And I came back the next day and I said, hey, bro, we got those two songs. Like, that was wild last night. Those are like real songs.
Mm.
He was like, yeah. And it's the same artist who's featured on, or who I'm featuring on with I'm Not American, Ka'ikena Scanlan.
Okay.
And so we're in his dorm room. We're having a freestyle session and a drinking session, passing the ukulele around, and we started singing about this utu bang, utu bang, utu bang, and then spoon meat, spoon meat, spoon meat. And then I was like, hey, that's for real. Like, now that I'm sober the next day, like, that's for real. Like, yeah. And so I said, hey, you're not gonna make a move on it. I'm trying to record it in your studio, in your laptop, in your room. You don't want to do it? All right, I'll take it elsewhere. And then it became like my biggest hit. So the next one is Spoon Meat, which is just their partners. So
okay,
it's always been Spoon Meat Entertainment.
Yeah, right. So what's next for Spoon Meat Entertainment? Like, what music works have you got coming up?
We're trying to release a song called Hakakau More. I think that should be released this month. I don't know if I have a day exactly yet, but it should be in the beginning of November. Spoon Meat's about to be released, and that's going to kind of be a precursor to our These Guys album. So These Guys is my band, bunch of guys from Hilo, 4-piece band that we run, and we're going to release an album of some material that we've been working on for maybe like 8 years.
Okay.
We recorded it on our first tour into the Hurley studio up in San Diego. They let us use their drum room and their studio. So we recorded a bunch of material and we never really used it. So now we're gonna just release it just to say we released it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So how do you prioritize? Like, how does music fit into the priority scheme for you as a parent and a farmer and a linguist and everything? Like, how do you there's only so many hours in the day. How do you like get the music in there?
The studio time is tough. It's when it pays off to just be a professional and really just focus and hammer in. And when I do have time that I can actually get a quality product that I can enjoy. I used to have a studio built in my house, which I still have to get that going over here since the new move. But it also is the most income that I get. And so it has to be prioritized in many ways. It pays the bills. It allows me to be a farmer. It allows me to bring value to my Hawaiian language and all that work that I've been doing on that side, because it has a place to be showcased. So in many ways, the music just becomes prioritized. It's tricky with young kids, but they're almost old enough to where they can travel with me to the gigs. For now, we have family on the outer islands, so I can bring them with me and drop them off with my parents or the in-laws and or their cousins and whatnot. And so with farming, I've been lucky enough to create that as my home. And so if I can nail in a couple more steps over here and then get a couple employees that are willing to come and show up and work 3 days out of the week, then that'll kind of take care of itself and we'll have food forever. So
if I live there, I'll come work with you
let's do it. Even if you can come for just a couple days,
way
man.
away.
Pick some light cheese and you pick some tangelos, some durian.
Sounds pretty good, man. All right. Well, to wrap this up, because I'm getting another warning from Zoom that's going to run out soon. So, are there any parting words you'd like to leave for the Australian audience?
Mahalo anui no keia kako ana mai. Thanks for all the support that you've been giving me for the years. I've seen the numbers that come through Australia, and through the whole, that whole edge of the Pacific Ocean. So mahalo nui, much appreciation. Yeah, I hope one of these days I can come see you guys and maybe get together with one of the artists out there, do something fun.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you very much for joining us here on Babylon Burning.
Aloha.
Mad man. Awesome. It's got a couple minutes. Just real quick before you go, would you mind recording like a jingle for the radio? Just like you're listening to. Yep. So it's Babylon Burning, Jesse I. So, you're listening to Babylon Burning with Jesse I, whatever. Feel free to sing a piece. A lot of time artists will like sing a little lyric or whatever as intro, but do your thing.
Sure. Sup, Palalas. This is Ka'ikena Scanlan, and you're listening to Babylon Burning with Jesse I.
Another one?
Sure. What we gonna say? Aloha nui kako. This is Ka'ikena Scanlan, and you're listening with Jesse I. And aloha nui kako. This is Ka'ikena Scanlan, and you're listening to Babylon Burning with Jesse I.
Matt. Give thanks, man. It was a real pleasure to speak to you. It's been a long time coming. I'm glad we did it, eventually.
Same here. Appreciate you still, keeping on it, being persistent.
Yeah. Well, I was just on my way to work the other day and I was listening to one of your songs and I'm like, I got to do this interview. And so I sent you a message there and then. I didn't even check what time it is. Normally I would be like, make sure it's not 4:00 in the morning or something. But I'm just like, send you a message. Yeah.
I'm usually up at 4:00 in the morning. So hit me up.
Life of the farmer.
Yeah, life of the father.
That too. All right, man. Well, give thanks. I really appreciate it. It was a good one, and I'll let you know when it's going to go up on the podcast and all that sort of stuff and radio, and send you the links.
Good. Much more
respect. More love.
Gotta get stone past life. You listening to the bonus tracks. You said you love it cause the thoughts that we bring. But the bonus tracks, this is a cargo thing.
Ka'ikena Scanlan speaking to me there just last week, November 2024. That's it for this episode. If you enjoy the podcast and you'd like to help support it, you can support it financially at patreon.com/Jesse_I_interviews for as little as a few bucks a month. On that note, a huge thank you to my patrons, the Don Armageddon Time, the Real General Empress Irie, me Idrin Tom Taniki, and me Chargy DJ Pablito. If you're not in a position to become a patron, you can always just leave me a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you use, or just tell anyone else about it who might be interested in it. Thanks for listening. Eyes as every time.
Aya ihe akavaya kale